And I think what we should do when the liberals sometimes annoy me. They get on TV and they mock people now who would talk about nullification or interposition or oath keepers. Now, why should they be scared about somebody saying, well, I'm going to obey my oath of office, or I'm going to obey my oath and I'm in law enforcement? I mean, why should they be so frightened? It's because they think they'll be used to enforce or prohibit things that they don't like or like. You know, they don't like what the issue is. But why shouldn't they be just as interested? You know, there was a time when they used interposition and nullification when these slave laws, the fugitive slaves law were passed. There were a lot of states in the North that ignored these things and got in the way of the federal government and said that you have to. What about during the civil rights marches? When you want somebody in the police force that wouldn't shoot their neighbors and friends or neighbors in the community because they're marching against an illegal, unconstitutional law of segregation? So we should use that against them. There's reason for us to be optimistic because of what's happening, and I am very pleased with what I find around the country. And of course, I go to the university and see so many young people, and I believe the young people have to be involved, or it's not a true revolution. And others say, "Well, I'm not so young anymore," but we're all young at heart because we believe in liberty. And that's we have to take this concept of liberty and put it back together again, because 100 years ago or so they came along with some way of dividing liberty up and saying, oh, some people can defend personal liberty. Yeah, we don't want to tell you what kind of life you have to lead and what church you go to and all this. Yes, personal liberty will protect, but economic liberty, you don't have that. And then somebody else will say, no, we have economic liberty, but we have to tell you what you do with your life. You know, it still bothers me. It's pretty bewildering that, you know, it's generally accepted that we're allowed to have intellectual freedom of thought and religious freedom of thought, but then we're not allowed to have freedom of what we want to do with our own bodies. We have to have the government telling us continuously what we can do or can't do, and you can't put anything in your mouth unless some bureaucrat in Washington approves of it. Where is it, and why is it that we can't take the position that we as individuals take responsibility for ourselves, and our government just needs to cut out? I believe the real purpose of life is to work for virtue and excellence. That's what our personal goals should be, in my estimation. In a totalitarian, dictatorial, authoritarian society, that just it makes it more difficult. And under today's conditions, it is assumed that government will provide this guidance to make a person better and virtuous. The government knows what you're supposed to think, do, read, and whatever. But in many ways, the individual must make these decisions. Once the government, even with good intentions, which sometimes are very, very dangerous, they have these good intentions of making you a better person or making the economy fair. Always beware of those people who want a fair economy, because that means they want to redistribute wealth and take care of these special interests. So once they do that, they cannot achieve any of that without undermining personal liberty. You undermine personal liberty and you destroy the creativity of the people. And this is what makes freedom work. People are free to choose and free to take risks and free to get rewards and greater prosperity and a greater chance to take care of your family and your friends and your neighbors. And even though people say, yeah, but if you don't tax some of these people, they might not be charitable. Who cares? And what I mean by that is I care personally, but I'm not to impose my wishes on others. There will be more charity and more compassion and more prosperity, and will be better distributed It does work. It will not be perfect, but one thing that we do know is the system we have today is failing. It's failing economically, it's failing with personal liberties, and it's failing on our foreign policy. So they can't argue any longer and say, oh, we're creating great prosperity, we take care of the people. Yeah, they're taking care of the people. Right now, the real unemployment rate is closer to 20%. Inflation is much higher than they say. The future is not going to all of a sudden turn around and there's going to be great prosperity. Everybody getting ready to graduate from college is going to have a great job. No, it's not going to be automatic. But it could be if we just have enough faith and confidence that freedom works. Freedom really does. Liberty works. This whole concept is the solution to our problems because we don't have emphasis in Washington. There's no emphasis about promoting liberty. It's always undermining liberty. And as they do that, they undermine our prosperity and create wars. I hear too often people saying in Washington, members of Congress said, well, it looks like it might have to take another war to get us out of this recession. Wars do not help the economy. Wars are destructive. You know, it really is deceiving that war spending is counted, that it increases the GDP. You know, they borrow the money or print the money, spend $10 billion, or tax the people for it, spend $10 billion, and they build something that they blow up the next day overseas. It doesn't increase, you know, the prosperity of anybody, but the GDP went up. The GDP went up. The people are catching on, and they're tired of it, and they're ready to do something. And what I'm hoping for is that you send me some help to Washington. Send some more people over there. 2012! The more the merrier. But ultimately, though, the responsibility falls on each and every one of us to be self-educated, because it won't come easily. Self-education, believe in something, know how to understand it, and find a job. You find a job to take care of yourself and your family, but you also have to have a job in this defense of our country, in defense of liberty.
Good job.
Now, I am convinced, in my own mind, this is my general analysis, is that people like you who are interested will come out and stand for an hour or so and listen, and then all of a sudden, you know, you have a lot more responsibility than those who are someplace off and they're looking at TV or a sporting event, but they always exist. You're the ones that count because you're in that 3, 4, 5% of the individuals who can lead the rest. And when the others lead, when you lead and there's enough people come along, it will become a prevailing attitude. When it becomes a prevailing attitude that liberty is great, America can be great, we can have prosperity and peace. When that becomes prevailing, Washington will change. So let's all get to work and fight for our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming out today. Make sure to stop by all the tables out.